Can I reveal your ethnicity at least? Can I reveal your ethnicity at least, or no? Because it's kind of
Oh, yeah,
relevant
that's
to
what
the
you're opening with.
conversation.
Is can you reveal my ethnicity?
Can I call you Romeo? Anyways, go on.
I, I think less about me the better. But
Okay. Go on. Yeah.
it's funny.
So,
All right.
yeah, we're about to hear your theory of everything
Well, I think
regarding
it's
some very controverted points.
you want to start just by catching everyone up on what you sent me. That maybe like, hey, we got to hop on this stream.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just so there's a very common thing said. I don't know what the origin of it was. Maybe it goes back thousands of years, but there's that book, "Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus." I think that's the title of it. I'm sure you've had it recommended to you. I've had it recommended to me. Have you, by the way?
I've heard you'll talk about it. I've never had it actually recommended.
Okay, yeah, I remember my uncle recommended it to me. He said it helped him. I never read it, but I was looking at, and then I said, well, what helped you from it? And then he told me this thing that we discussed, and that's usually one of the main concepts in there. And then you see it repeated all over the internet. Like if you type into Google, like help me to understand. Well, if you type in help me to understand the female soul, Edith Stein's essays on women and femininity will pop up. If you say help me to understand the female psyche or help me understand women, articles invariably will pop up that will mention this point. Point being, they say basically, they don't say it exactly in this way I'm about to say it. There's a little bit of nuance, a little bit more nuance sometimes, but the idea is that women will come out of, as a result of, say, stress or some sort of distress, and they'll want to essentially, say, vent and talk about it, and they don't want, according to their own admission in many cases, um, for the men to, quote unquote, problem solve or to kind of reason with them with regard to these issues. The sense being, or the idea being that men, when they've never seen a problem they didn't like and want to immediately eliminate. um, Whereas women, they could somehow, I guess, live with problems and issues as long as they can vent about it. They can kind of somehow live with those better, but they do need to kind of get it out, as it were. And so the idea is listen, understand, and but don't try to kind of like intervene to kind of like, as if you're a stoic philosopher, reason it away or come up with like an actual solution or prudential intervention. And so I said, well, why would this be the case? I mentioned to you, insofar as this is the case, why would it be the case? Because you might say like that would make it sound like it's a little bit confusing, right? Because like let's say I come to you and I say, there's something that I'm worried about, or I just can't quite figure out, so I want to like get your take on it, and you're like, yeah, like actually you shouldn't be worried about this. It's an inflated worry. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal, or and here are the reasons why, or well, this is how you should approach the situation. I would be, I think, grateful, happy. um Whereas the supposition here is that the woman would be upset because she just somehow is not teleologically oriented to a kind of solution
I guess.
oriented mentality or something.
Yeah, I
And you're
guess
saying this is wrong.
I think I think it's dead wrong. I mean, I asked ChatGPT, even directly came up with it. Like,
Yeah.
that's even ChatGPT's suggestion, which says a lot about how you said this is normal. I actually do think it's incorrect. And I think
Oh, well, yeah.
so. Shallow reason it's incorrect, which is pedantic and not actually convincing, but to come out of the way first. I do think men are like this too. I think we just don't talk to men as often as we talk to women
Uh-huh.
in the same ways, same problems. I think if you're telling me about some problem you have, you actually very rarely actually want me to start giving you advice. You're like, what the hell? I'm just shooting the shit, It's,
Right. That's no, yes. So I think there's, yes. So the fact, so I get, this is a good point. You're saying that actually this is supposed to, this is meant to be some sort of like unique characteristic or description, but actually men also have, yeah, okay, I can see that. Fair enough.
yeah.
That's one point. Yeah.
Though I think by definition, men don't really share their. I mean, especially just when you're not in a long term relationship or whatever the situation is. Like you just this different kinds of issues come up or don't come up, right? Like,
Right. Right.
um,
What's the deeper point?
The deeper point is, I actually think women are fine with you helping them solve their problems if you do it the correct way, which normally means
the correct way. Okay, this is interesting. Go on, yeah.
yeah. So I think it's, and the reason I think it's good to do on stream, I actually think it's shockingly similar to the way you, if you talk to atheists online, you need to.
How is that the case?
So step one, you have to match their emotions. If they're really stressed and anxious about something, the solution is not to say that thing doesn't matter. You're just freaking out. No, the solution
you don't want to dryly respond. And yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that is stressing this person out. Step
Yeah.
one is to say,
Take it seriously.
Or not just, wow, that does seem stressful. Like
Right.
Why? Because you have to have a certain amount of trust and rapport to start suggesting a solution, and they have to feel like you're coming at it from the same direction as them. The way that, and this is a difference with men. I think men, are a lot more open to, what's a good meme for it? Have you ever seen the movie The Incredibles?
I don't think I have. I haven't watched a movie in the last 10 years.
Incredibles is like 20 years old.
Okay. I don't think I've seen it. I kind of became disenchanted with movies, and no attempt to recover from that has been successful to date. But go on, yeah.
Because of the new Star Wars movies?
I think that might be more your thing. But no, I'm looking at the images. No, I absolutely have not seen Incredibles. But the main character somewhat reminds me of you. But anyways, no, I'm just kidding. Go on.
I don't know. I'm very buff. Thank you. So there's a scene in it, but the scene doesn't matter. But basically, I think men are a lot more like, if you're wrong about something, I'd almost rather you just come out and say you're dead wrong. I don't necessarily need you to match my emotions for 2 minutes first, right?
Right.
But I think with women, it's more like with maybe atheists online, where first step one, hey, I'm really stressed about this thing. Step one, match the emotions. Yeah, that does seem stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Step two, what they say in the first 2 sentences about their problem, if you really dig in, sometimes is not their actual problem.
What makes you say that? That's interesting.
Well, I think half the times when they talk about their problems, it turns out the thing that they're saying it bothers them, they're actually stuck with, and there's no real way to change it. But there's some underlying third premise, the way they're approaching it, the way their mentality, whatever. And I think the same way if you're trying to convince someone to not be an atheist, you have to just ask one question at a time and get in the weeds with them. I think we tend, men tend to make stuff too reductionist. We're like, are you stressed about the thing? That thing doesn't matter. You're stressed about the thing, just do X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, it's not that simple. And the reason it's not that simple is, by definition, if you're stressed about something or anxious about something, it's probably not this one thing in a vacuum. That thing is the canary in the coal mine for a deeper thing. And it's how do you pull, and this is Jordan Peterson's point, which I think I've talked about, where men want answers to questions. Women want to worry if the question's even worded correctly. And so to even earn the right to try to answer the question.
Women want to wait a second. That sounds unusual. What do you mean? What you mean is that if they're coming with a distressed problem, the first process is that they're just trying to kind of clarify it, is what you mean.
Yeah, if I come to you and I'm like, I am so stressed right now. I need a car wash. Just get a car wash. It's not attitude about the car wash. And if you let me talk, and it turns out I'm actually stressed that I don't have enough time in my day, and the car wash is just the thing that's the most obvious to me, and I haven't done it yet, and it's top of mind. And it's the thing that makes it obvious how bad this problem has gotten. My problem's not actually the lack of car wash.
I see what you're saying.
The lack of car wash is a signal that I'm too stressed and have no time in my day.
I see what you're saying. So a lot of people would see something some very typical things like this, and they would say, why are you getting stressed about such a small thing? They wouldn't actually see that they're looking at it at the surface level, and they actually need to dig deeper to see what the real underlying problem is, instead of concluding that, why is she unreasonably so distressed in a kind of disproportionate way with such a small thing.
Yeah, because it's not about the car wash. There's probably 20 things you're dropping the ball on. But if you used to always have a clean car, and now you need a car wash, you've needed a car wash for a month, and you still haven't gotten a car wash, you're like, this car wash, even though not that big of a deal, if this is the only thing, wouldn't matter. this is the really obvious change in my lifestyle that's being impacted from the fact I'm too stressed and overworked and busy and have no time in my day and I've taken on too much and I'm stressed about it and probably not sleeping that much either. Like,
Right.
yeah, not saying that's the exact problem all the time, but that's just a very clear example of the thing you mentioned is not actually, which is why I was like, just go get the car wash. It's like, it's not about the car wash. It's
So
about the lifestyle choices that made you stuck in a position to even need a car wash like this.
right. So essentially what you're saying is that these individuals, I think they're mainly women. Yeah, I think
No,
they're
I agree
mainly
with the
women that say
second point.
this.
Yeah.
So you were gonna say?
No, I would say in some ways men don't always want advice either, but specifically the way men and women talk to each other, I think this is why they talk past each other. Where when a woman is upset and bothered about something, it they often start with the canary in the coal mines. They don't start with the actual root cause.
Yeah, I think there's a couple other things. Yeah, I think that the people who are disseminating this information, yeah, they're not going deep enough into the question or matter because and that's important because I mean I think there's also some other things. One is I think sometimes there could be a disconnect where men might have a very kind of again like stoic, logical, kind of somewhat brutal to their minds response that lacks some emotional finesse. I think there could be a dimension of that, and there could sometimes just be a dimension of kind of just being short with them, kind of impatient and not letting the venting process play out. Um,
And that's true, but I think we undersell it when we call it a venting process. So I think what it really is it's a articulation of the problem process. Where again, the process
Interesting.
when said first, really you might have to, you know, it's a Heideggerian epistemology. We have to kind of review the thing a bunch of times so you really know what it is.
You have to approach it with the poetry of being
Well, it's
and
because
redescribe it in multiple ways. And the more obscure that you redescribe it, the closer you get to it. No, I'm just kidding. So
right, you can't just start with "I think, therefore I am" and then geometric proof everything. You have to do a first pass. You already arrive at a first pass from being alive and being a being in time, and you have to do passes over it, and it gets more clear each time you do a pass.
right, right, right. Okay, I see. Okay, okay, okay. I can see that. Um, I think there might also be a sense of like possibly ego being offended, which that might be the more universal dimension of it, right? Like we said, whoever it is that, whatever the gender of the individual involved.
And I think that comes from the male intuition. Yeah, just hey, let's cut through all the BS and just solve the problem. And the way the ego comes in, it's probably like you don't even understand the problem yet, and you're cutting through my argument.
Right, 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 right.
But they of course don't word it like that because you only have to have a few conversations like this break down for the woman to even slightly misrepresent herself and be like, I don't want solutions. When really what she means is, I don't want the solution the way you do.
Right, right, right. And that would just be the kind of short response.
Yeah. When really
Yeah.
she wants to talk to you about this thing. This thing bothers her. She
Yeah, I
wants to
mean, as
talk
a
about it.
human being, yes. I mean, as a rational, as a human being who has not just emotion but reason, even if in women the emotion can sometimes be rather strong. Um, Nevertheless, as a human being, yeah, they are teleologically oriented towards ends, and no one likes problems, and everyone wants to kind of build a bridge towards some sort of constructive solution. Like that it would be absolutely bizarre if they didn't. And this notion that they just want to vent and then solve it on their own would also not be very human, right?
Yeah.
Because we're cooperative people beings.
I think what it's more like is they don't want to cut through and nail the problem. They want to hold everything in their mind at once and get it organized, which that's what venting does. Venting holds a bunch in your mind at once and gets it organized around like, how should I even feel about this? These 18 things bother me. How are they rightly ordered? And then once they're rightly ordered, I can know my true take.
Yes,
Venting, when done in a healthy way, that's the goal of venting.
right. So yeah. So essentially, yeah. I think what you're saying. I get it. Yeah. So if it is one of these scenarios, um, I mean, what do you think about about the generalization that, insofar as one could generalize, um, when there's some sort of distress, women will tend to approach the man to want to talk about it, whereas a man might not necessarily do the same.
I think it's probably too broad of a generalization to
Yeah.
be useful. I think, there's of course some truth to it, or else everyone wouldn't say it. But
Yeah.
I think in most of our practical lives, the more that we believe that, the worse off we will be.
Right.
um, that being said, it's a good thing to internalize a bit if we are, being too, as you said, like brutal or reductionistic. Like it's in those cases, it's good to remember that women are different, because it can help us be more empathetic and take it slightly slower and listen more.
Right. 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 Yeah. No,
I
I mean,
think
I
the main
think that.
reason to be empathetic, it's not just about fake emotional empathy, it's actually about full intellectual empathy. I think men often don't actually see things from women's perspective enough.
Right. No, I think that's true.
And there's
Do
a
you
lot
think
of real
maybe?
asymmetry. I think the asymmetry in experience is almost more important to grasp than the relative difference in
Well,
approaches to problem.
I think the same is also true with women, because, for example, I'm sure you've had experience many times. Um, I've had experiences over the years where I was talking to one woman or another. It's happened many times. This might have been someone close to me, maybe in the family, like a cousin, or it might have been like someone that was on closer, more intimate terms with, where I could talk about this thing. Or, where like woman is dressed in a, let's just call it a sexually provocative manner. And, and which we see a lot in society these days all over the place. So it's a quite common thing. And very often, when you sort of mention that that could be a problem and the reasons why, um, for example, maybe one reason you'd give is, if a woman is, especially if it's highly sexually provocative manner that she's dressing, remember that? Do you remember like how they used to put on CDs? Like, so I forgot what it was. It was something like listener warning, explicit content or whatever. What was that? If sexually explicit content is on this like tape or CD or something, if a woman is appearing and presenting herself in the public and civil order in society in all the in a, let's call a highly sexually explicit manner, um, and the notion that that does not entail any social problem. For example, heightening the states of arousal in that particular city or society, which can lead to, I think, the possibility of increased prostitution, increased adultery, increased sexual perversions and pornography, and so on. If the states of sexual arousal in a particular society or polity are at constantly heightened levels, because the women in that society increasingly omnipresently are dressed in highly sexually provocative and explicit manner. This is obviously, it seems to be very obviously logically problematic. That's one way of looking at it.
I
But
think there's a ton to unpack there.
very often, one last thing, women will just say like, no, like they'll refuse to see it, or feign or claim. Let's just say claim. They apparently claim that they can't see it from the male point of view. They just don't see it through such a visually sensitive point of view. But go on.
I mean, I think the last point's intellectually dishonest if they do say it.
You've seen that, right?
Not since, I mean, like in high school, people would say it, but people are pretty naive, and they tend to be saying it out of ideology, not out of actual like belief.
Okay.
I feel like
Okay.
it's like, oh, this is the party line and what I'm supposed to say, and it's in some way like fighting for women's rights. But
Right.
I would say from a Catholic perspective, I guess there's thing one to say. When we look at how Jesus talks about this in scripture, he definitely tells people sin no more, don't commit adultery, all of that. But what he also says, like his advice to men is, if your eyes cause you to sin, gouge them out. His advice is not, if your eyes cause you to sin, tell the woman to cover up. Um, in some ways that makes the reaction very different than Islam.
Well. Wait a second. I think the context there, I think it was unthinkable that women would dress the way they do now in the context there.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, you're having, I don't, I'm sure for whatever the societal standards were at the time, people would still, yeah. Either way, moving on. Point two, I think
Remember, this
And
is a culture that brought us the head veil.
right. So I guess there's point two. There's two different ways to talk about it. First part about it is the Christian project is not necessarily to organize the perfect society with perfect laws and enforce them all in like the civil sphere, city of
Yeah,
God, city of
yeah.
man, to the point where, in First Peter, and I can pull it up.
But we're talking about something far from perfect, my friend. We're talking about a novel and I think somewhat anomalous deviation from the norm.
I understand.
Yeah.
So would you like King James version? All right, here's King James.
I'm a fan of King James. If it's on the screen, I can't see it though.
I'm sharing it. Can you see it now? Oh, can you see it now?
Yes.
No, that's not one. So is it not here?
Are you familiar, by the way, with Katina, the Katina app or website where you could do this, you could do it King James, RSV, Dewey Rames, and they have corresponding patristic commentaries. Have you seen this, Katina? You must have seen it, Katina.
Yeah, I've seen different ones. There's a bunch like it. Yeah. Oh, this is the wrong translation here. Actually, King James, honor the men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. This is not a correct translation for the King James.
Is that right?
Here, let's look at normally the King James is about the same, it doesn't matter. But look how different it reads in the one of the newer translations. Honor the not the king, the emperor.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Honor the head honcho, basically. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, because if Peter's saying honor the king, you read that as Jesus. If you're saying honor the emperor, that's Caesar. Literally.
Well, I think I would have read it the same way, but okay, go on, yeah.
I mean, not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, he says here, honor the emperor. He says here, slave masters, honor, or if you're a slave, honor your slave master.
Right.
And I think implicitly in both of these, there's hey, be the best person you can, despite how bad the society is around you. That's no excuse to be, you still have to fulfill your obligations. And
Oh yeah. I'm not implying one should go around and throw tar on. No, there was no there was really no implicit. There was no implication whatsoever.
well, I don't think it's not just about action either. I think it's also about what we focus and spend our attention and time on.
It is designed by nature to draw one's focus.
It is, but it's if your eyes cause you to sin, get out to them out.
Well, no, but the original point was about no, but I just used it as I just brought that up as an example that both men and women can not understand each other's or psychology, because I've often heard that brought up.
But I don't necessarily think this is a psychology issue.
I don't think it's always naive or fake. I think sometimes they really shock. They can't somehow understand because they don't have the same experience.
Well, I think as far as telling women that they're dressed wrong, you will very, very rarely have standing to actually say that. Like if you're telling
it's not about that. What I'm saying is I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. These are talking to people that I'm on good relations with. Not that they just got offended and they're like, and then they're. What I'm saying is like I perceive within them like almost like a color blindness, a cognitive incapacity to genuinely sympathize and see it from the male point of view, because they're not visually stimulated in the same way neurologically. Do you see? So it's kind of a leap for them to get it a lot of times.
Well, I think also, and I think one of the big differences between men and women is women. The men and women have very different relationships to culture. Where something's culturally normal, even if it's good, men will often reject it and fail to do it, even though it's normal. But for women, if something's culturally normal but bad, they're way more likely than men to blindly accept it. Often it's a benefit. It means women are more into holidays than men most of the time. It means, variety of other like the cultural hurdles. What do you say?
Did you say more into holidays? I didn't capture.
Yeah, women are way more into holidays than men generally, right?
Oh, I see.
But I think one aspect of this is if the way a woman dresses is normal in her peer group, she's going to not even really be able to process somebody that's offended by it. She's going to see you as an anachronism. It's not even a male and female psychology thing at that point. It's just a, you know, you're committing a category error to her. She can't even imagine that what you're saying is true. I think especially as Catholics and people that, you know, have the perspective we do, what we see as normal is like, you know, what percent do you give normal to human nature from our reading of people through all history? For Catholics, it's like 80% of what we view as normal, maybe 50, comes from if it was normal for Augustine and Aquinas. If something is abnormal to Augustine and Aquinas, it's really hard to call it normal for us. When for almost everyone else in society, that doesn't matter at all.
But usually, what was abnormal for them is traced in older norms as well, scriptural and non-scriptural. Yeah.
But they don't really care about it. Like, you know, if their entire peer group changed their opinion would change in 5 years.
Well, that's unfortunate, you know.
Yeah. When for us, if our entire peer group changed an opinion, we'd talk to random people online about, hey, why are you not holding to the truth?
Yeah. But I at the same time, I do think we should be able to formulate but just one last thing on this point, which was kind of like we kind of veered from the central point into subsidiary, like, you know, related points. But I do think we should be able to formulate abstract reasons and principles why things are wrong in contemporary society, like such as I tried to do. Reasons why certain phenomena would be morally wrong for a society, not good for a society, right?
That's kind of. Can you rephrase it just to make sure I'm responding correctly?
What I'm saying is that I think one should avoid the knee-jerk reaction to formulating abstract reasons and principles why a certain behavior which has become normalized is actually you know, not good and for society. Did I lose you there? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think maybe the real question is, what is the relationship between Christians and societal norms? Like, you know, I think the relationship is very different if 70% of society is Christian. You know, we should, you know, enforce them in a way that's very different than if, you know, we're in California or New York and sub 10% of people are actually faithful Christians. And you kind of have to, you know, like, if you roll into the town square and tell people who don't believe in Jesus, don't believe in the Bible, don't believe in human nature as we know it, and they just believe in, you know.
Right. Right. But any case though, we're talking about things that we're talking about things that I have to sleep soon, by the way, just letting you know, because I have to wake up at like, wow.
Yeah, we'll call it in like a minute and a half here. That'll hit 30.
Yeah. Okay. In any case, so we'll see about these two friends. I'll kind of poke them and go. So one of the friends, which is one you've actually met in person, seemed quite intrigued by the idea. But this individual is somewhat he likes to think a lot before acting. That's kind of his personality type. But I think I can goad him a little bit. He would actually do it. So I think I will kind of bring it up with him tomorrow again, follow up. And
you should bring up Jeff Bezos's two-way door thing, where, you know, if you're not committing yourself to something, like if you can go out the door as easy as you can go in, just try as many things as possible and see what sticks. Because, you know, doing one of these for 30 minutes, you know, if that's all it is not that big of a deal.
So wait. So what you said was, wait. Could you rephrase that? You're saying that
I'm saying it doesn't commit him to doing these for the next 5 years to join one. You know,
yeah.
He shouldn't have, like,
I even told him. I think the thing that sells most people is anonymity. Honestly.
Yeah, full anonymity. And we've all said bad enough things that we will all protect each other.
That's true. That's true. You're implicated by virtue of not being an atheist. No, but oh man. Well, okay. So I okay. Yeah, I think we should call it a night. But so have you refined? So you've been refining your anti-atheistic arguments. Is that right?
I don't really have. I mean, if you have 3 minutes here, the current place I'm getting stuck is. I mean, and there's a bunch of places we're getting stuck. I think if you try to prove Jesus and the Gospels are like authentic witnesses of God and Jesus and His resurrection, I think that's too high of a bar to do in this medium, without like just. I mean, maybe we could do it eventually, but that's really hard to do. Um, The other one that's interesting that I think there's a better chance of at least hurting their argument. The main atheist channel that I go on is Breakfast Taco, and
Okay.
he is convinced that the argument from like the Kalam argument or the argument from contingency doesn't work. And he's
Mhm.
like, in his counterpoint, which I'd be interested to get your take, is okay. He grants the premise that all things rely on some other being for their existence, and there has to be some necessary being. Um, he'll also grant that there can only be one necessary being, not two or three, because it's a contradiction.
Okay.
He just thinks that the universal quantum field is fully explanatory of the whole universe and therefore works as
Right.
the necessary being. And he thinks, given that it's fully explanatory of the whole universe,
How is it
adding
explanatory
it,
for the mind?
I that is one way that you might be able to get them. I push them pretty hard on that. The emergence theory of consciousness doesn't work, and I didn't really get a straight answer.
And
But
and wait, but with when you talk about I mean, no one. I mean, who has asserted in the kind of necessity of the quantum field, like in that strong sense of the kind of uncreated.
well, and I think that's the biggest hole in the argument is I think it doesn't actually fit the criteria of a necessary being.
Right. It doesn't. So
I think
that'd be a very weird way to look at a quantum field.
in the
Because
way that in the way the argument does work, I think it's the kind of thing where if you explain this one thing, you can explain everything else. And so according to his argument, and so he goes, this one thing explains everything else. Therefore, this is the only being necessary being, and it can be the first principle.
what does he see as the relation between, say, for example, the Big Bang and that quantum field?
He'll start to say that's mostly irrelevant and a red herring, and we don't actually know how the Big Bang works with the cosmology. Maybe there's infinite multiverses. Maybe there's just this one, and the universe collapses and shrinks over and over. He's like he doesn't get actually committed to any one model. Anybody doesn't think it
So
matters.
he believes the eternality of quantum fields.
He believes that generally most atheists online that I've met, if not all of them, believe in the eternality of the universe in some sense.
Well, I guess my question is, well, what would like they like if you, insofar as you believe in the eternality of the universe, um, what is, how do you account for that without some sort of ultimate principle that could ground that such that it doesn't just at some point go completely out of existence?
He thinks the universal quantum field is that grounding principle.
That sounds like a pretty circular argument.
And that's exactly my case. I think he does not prove the universal quantum field is actually necessary and explanatory, and so he'll just yeah.
And I'm curious to see what the relation of that. See, what I like how Saint Augustine, which is like my new favorite, how he argues. He argues more from the standpoint of the mind as opposed to matter. Whereas a lot of these arguments, I told you, that's why I remember I kind of mentioned this too. I think how some of these arguments kind of um, take an external material foundation, whereas now Scripture does the same. But it kind of points to the order and beauty and awe and majesty of creation to make that move, not to kind of these more kind of physical arguments. But St. Augustine very interestingly brings the mind into the picture.
You should go on his podcast and try to debate him. It'd be interesting to hear how you take him.
Okay. Or he
He
could
doesn't
come
have-
here. Or he could come here.
I don't know if he's going to come here.
No?
He might, but he streams for like 4 or 5 hours every day, so I don't know if he's going to do more streams.
How could this be? Like,
You could get him to come here, but I think he'd want to know you first.
are people really streaming 4 or 5 hours a day?
I mean, let's see how long he's been streaming. Let's.
I just saw my friend. Hold on. What name were you using?
I'm finally Catholic.
Yeah. So a friend of mine who I grew up with, who moved to Japan and then married a Japanese woman.
Yeah. Wait, yeah, his streams. Or let me just show you. I'll show you his screen. Can you? Let me share. Look at this. 4 hours.
That's great.
6 hours the day before. 4:45, 5:30.
I don't know if these days I can do anything.
6 hours.
I don't know if these days I can do anything for that long straight.
4 hours, 5 hours. Look, this is only 8 days ago, and he's done.
How old do you think he is? I'm just wondering.
I think mid-30s. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Low 40s.
I would get. That's too much. But anyways,
I mean that means
take a break.
In the last week, he has done 6 plus 5 plus 5 plus 1.
I just invite him. Just invite him. See if he'll show up on our say. Like, we're not gonna do a 4 or 5 hour stream, but you might enjoy a challenging conversation.
That means he spent 36 hours in the last week on this.
Okay, that's odd.
24 times 7, so divided by 168. That means he has spent 20% of his life live streaming in the last week.
Huh. Okay.
I have one atheist I met from the channel who you might be able to join at some point too.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I was just gonna tell you, I met up with a friend of mine that I grew up with that I hadn't seen for a long time in person, and he was a very interesting guy because, I mean, if genius is a technical term, like if that's like some sort of like technical term on IQ, that's something he's probably there. Because you were talking about someone doing something for 4 or 5 hours. This guy wakes up in the morning right now, goes on a walk, comes back, does math for 4 or 5 hours. When I say math, he found some problem that hasn't been solved, and he's working on it. There's just like he has 2 tables full of papers, and he's just like working on this problem. And he just, so what's interesting about this guy is that he just seems to be able to learn anything he sets his mind to. He does advanced math and computer programming for fun, as like a liberal art, as an end in itself. And he works at McDonald's in Japan. Like he's not good at making money, but he just
why doesn't he
cerebral and intellectual? And he's not autistic, by the way. He's highly cerebral and intellectual. He just not really, I guess, good at making money. I don't know.
I mean,
like if this kind of guy, you dropped him in Silicon Valley, he'd probably end up like billionaire. But I want to actually tell him, like, listen, you're getting older now. You just got married. He married a Japanese woman as his wife.
Here, let me end the stream here.
Okay.
Then let's talk off stream.
Yeah.